What's up, guys? Today we're going to be balancing a motorcycle tire. So starting off, I have the Bike Master balance stand here. I highly recommend it. It's quality made. It's also a truing stand, as you can see from the needle here. And then to set up the stand, it actually has a bubble level, as you can see here. And then the legs are adjustable. So let's start with everything that we're going to end up needing. First, of course, we need wheel weights. These are 1/4 ounce. This is what I used to use. These are the glass micro beads, which I would highly recommend for street tires, but not track ones you're taking off a lot. Here's just a little plastic tool I use to pop off the old wheel weights. And then duct tape to temporarily put on the weights. And then this is just an Allen wrench. It's what you need to actually set up the collars here for the actual wheel stand. As I'm getting ready to put the axle part on the wheel, a little thing to point out, I did make another video where I mounted the tire on the rim, so be sure to check that out. I'll actually put a link towards the end of this video. So now we got our wheel. I'm going to pull off the balance stand axle here, and then grab my Allen wrench and take off these 2 collars, as well as the black O-ring you can see there. And then we'll just end up putting it down the wheel just like you would a normal axle. And as you can see, the inside collars are actually cones, so they're going to center that axle nice. So you want to make sure that it's nice and snug. You can put the wheel on the ground with that axle part kind of digging into the ground to hold it in place, or I just kind of squeeze it a lot while I'm tightening it. And then once I got that, I'll end up putting on the backup collar and the O-ring. Also make sure that you're pretty centered on that axle. So now that I've got all that on, we'll go ahead and put it back on the stand. And the first thing I want to do is pull off the old wheel weights. So this is a track tire, so it does have duct tape over the wheel weights. Any of you that have gone to the track know in order to pass tech inspection, you need to have something securing those wheel weights. So I'll pull that off, and then I'll grab my plastic tool. And I just use the plastic one because it doesn't scratch the rims. And then I'll just pry off both of those wheel weights. And then once I have those off, I'll go ahead and give it the initial spin. You don't want to go crazy with this, just enough for it to do maybe 2 or 3 revolutions. The harder you spin it, the longer you're going to be waiting. And then we're just going to wait for it to stop and then change direction. And then it'll kind of rock back and forth until eventually it stops. And when it's completely stopped, the heaviest part of the wheel will be at the very bottom and the lightest part will be at the very top. You just draw a line straight down the center of the wheel. And what we're looking for here is you'll see that wheel now reverse and go back the other way. That means there is a heavier part of the wheel and it's at the bottom right there. So this will eventually stop. And then you can either, some people will draw a line on the tire at the top for the lightest part. What I do is I grab the wheel weights, I leave the sticky back on there, and I grab duct tape and just tape it on there temporarily. And you do this so you can add weight, take away weight, and nothing's on there permanently. So I'll start out by putting 1/4 ounce on there, and then I'll give it another light spin. And this will eventually just start rocking back and forth until it gets to the exact same spot. So what I'll do is add another 1/4 ounce, and that ends up doing it. So a 1/2 ounce is the weight that I needed to do total on this wheel, which isn't bad. One thing to keep in mind is you're never going to get it perfect. Even the machines, they're really only testing at 30 miles per hour plus. So You're not going to get it completely accurate. We're just trying to get as close as possible. You could spend all day on this. It really is tedious because there's too many elements that can affect it. Friction in the wheel bearings, friction in the bearings on the stand. So the sprocket carrier, when you end up putting that back on. So I just get mine as close as possible, and I've watched the Dunlop guys at the racetrack do it, and what they end up doing is they do the X and the Y axis. So they will stop the tire, at the X axis and hold it there and see if they can balance it, and if they can, it's good. And then they'll move up to the Y, and if they can balance it, it's good, which you'll see. I'll do this later on. What I'm doing right now is I'm just adding that second weight. And what you'll see is it will reverse a little bit and kind of slowly turn back. That's still not bad. This is good enough for me. And then what I'll end up doing is then taking off those temporary wheel weights, and I'll put on the permanent ones. So that's pretty much it for the balance part. Now I'll move on to the truing thing. I usually just do this on the rotor or the wheel, whichever one I want to check. The wheel, typically, you'll see when you're spinning it. But the rotor, I'll take the needle here. I'll put it up against the rotor and then back it up maybe 1 millimeter or 2 and just watch that gap. If it ends up dragging on the needle, it's really bent. Now, one of the tips I wanted to give for this video is whenever you're pulling those wheel weights off, they're going to leave that sticky foam stuff on your rim. And a lot of people, for any kind of sticky stuff left from stickers or decals or whatever, will end up using Goo Gone. But I started using WD-40, and it works just as good, if not better. So I highly recommend trying the good old WD-40. So if you have any questions, please ask in the comments below. If you liked the video, please click on that like button. And thanks for watching my video.